just doing my thing.
Happy New Year, footy fans. Thanks for tuning in to the Voice of C38. I am Brendan Wyatt. I got my crew with me. So joining me in studio is Matt.
Hello.
Brian.
Aloha, friends.
And via the Voice of C38 Satellite Global Network, via Skype, the Drunken Monk.
Greetings.
If any of you out there have Twitch, the gamers out there know what I'm talking about.
I was going to say.
I have a Twitch, but not the Twitch.
I have a twitch in my leg. Anyway, gamers, if watching our podcast live is something for you, hit up the Drunken Monk. He's got the Twitch link, and we're trying some things out. We're in beta mode right now in the off season.
We're in training. We're in preseason.
If all goes to plan, you'll never see me.
Trust me, that's a good thing, folks.
That's the plan.
That's kind of been the producer's plan from the get-go.
That is the plan.
He's like, I'm behind the scenes, guys.
I tolerate John, but barely.
Let's put up like a curtain, like a legit man behind the curtain.
I want a Wizard of Oz man behind the curtain.
Pull that flag over in front of your face.
Too
Why
bad we
don't you
missed
just do
Christmas.
what Les Claypool does and wear costumes and, you know.
I could just put out one of those fan spandex bodysuits.
Right? See, this is where having a couple cameras in here might not be a bad idea.
Whoa.
Because Matt hid
Wear
himself.
the Mexican wrestling mask.
Lucho.
Lucho mask.
A Lucha Libre
We
mask.
have an opening for a Lucho here.
That's true. We need a new Lucho.
Not Lucha.
Unfortunately, I'm more the Jack Black sort than the.
You're the more the Nacho. Not
Yes,
the
I'm more
Lucha?
the Nacho.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, so thank you for joining us. Today's topics, as we're going to cover a little bit of some of the things that are kind of, they've hit the message boards over the last week. So we'll discuss the departure of Paul Bravo.
Who said nothing happens in the off season?
Right. And breaking, just before we hit record, the departure of John Spencer.
That beats the breaking last week before we recorded of Brian breaking your favorite glass.
Yeah.
True. Better breakings this week, trust me.
Yeah. I'd rather break news than beer glasses.
Word.
Opa! Yes,
He has one beer.
right.
Can't take him anywhere.
We got to welcome two new homegrown players, Courtney Ford, Richie Perez. They were
Have we researched the pronunciation of Courtney? Is that correct? Do we know? Because
yeah,
Cool.
At first, I thought it was Conte, and then I realized if I look
Conte.
closer, there's an R in
That's
there,
an
and
R.
it is. It's Courtney.
Courtney.
And obviously, we'll get the pronunciation paperwork once the season's in turn, and they give us all that nice paperwork upstairs in the press box. But
If we get in the press box.
I'd like to welcome those guys officially to the Rapids Club, although they've been a part of the Youth Academy for many years. And
Yeah, that was interesting. Perez he's been around since day
It's
one.
like you
yeah,
14 or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Like 07.
Mm-hmm. He was one of the originals, if you
Yeah.
think about it. And you go back to Shane O'Neill, and we talked Dylan Cerna. They were obviously the original homegrown players, Shane being signed first. But talking about Richie Perez, he was one of the younger kids that the organization definitely wanted to keep an eye on. And I can remember over the last 3 years seeing him out playing and training with the senior team at times.
In the summers,
So he's very familiar with how this club runs their day-to-day, organization and all of that. So he's very familiar with it. We've seen Courtney Ford a couple times with the senior team here and there, but not as much as we've seen Richie Perez. There's a few of us that, have been around and watched a lot of Rapids practices. Our super fans out there, they definitely have seen many Richie Perez moments and have been waiting for this moment.
And he's one of those guys, I think we'll see him at his face out at training again and go, I remember him.
Yep, that's exactly
I've seen
what it
you
was.
out here before.
When I saw his picture, in the post and the Twitter and all that, I was like, "Oh, that's the kid!
Yeah.
Yes, finally!"
That was the dark-haired kid
Yep.
that we were looking at.
And that's because I can remember asking, "Who's this kid?" Thinking he was on trial, knowing he was a kid, but still thinking he might be someone on trial. And then they'd be like, "Oh no, he's a DA."
It was always he and the little kind of red-haired guy.
And then the keeper,
Yeah.
who's at
Who's at Creighton, too.
Creighton, yep. So we've got some kids coming up, and it's good to see that these two were signed, and that actually kind of
For the people out of the loop like me, did they come through DU?
One did.
Okay.
Courtney did.
Yeah, Courtney did. He was a DU product, which is something to be proud of when you
He was in
consider-
his junior year, sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sophomore.
No, he's a junior this year.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
I'll take that back. So
Just
junior.
finished it.
Right. Okay. So I just remember reading he had one hell of a sophomore year. So he also has been pretty consistent when you consider all.
They were
things
saying
considered.
he was one of the best central defenders in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Well, just defender in general. He's typically
Yeah.
not a central defender. He's actually a right back. So when you think about kind of our situation, you almost kind of have to think, wow, that's some depth there because, if we're going to keep Jared Watts back and central back, that's great. Then we have someone because losing Joe Greenspan made me worry a little bit. But when you consider Jared Watts' development over the last half of the season, he definitely made some serious strides. But
He doesn't want to be back there all
when you think
forever.
about the squad, we didn't really have a whole lot of depth at right and left back. We had backups in Mikhail Williams and
One.
Dennis Castillo.
Yeah.
And sometimes Castillo wasn't around because he was in Charlotte, so technically you only had one. And not necessarily knowing whether Mikhail Williams is going to be around next year or not, you look at.
I think he
Courtney-
will just for that fact.
Right, but
Just because we need some bodies.
Depth.
But the other thing you might want to mention, or not mention, but take into consideration is both of Mikhail Williams and Dennis Castillo, they both take up international roster spots.
True.
Do you really want to take two international roster spots on backup wingbacks?
And didn't we just unload a spot too? So there's
Well, we traded one to Atlanta.
so there's another one we can't use.
Right. So you
use, so
might
to speak.
want to reevaluate your system or what you want to do as far as backup wingbacks, adding Courtney Ford.
Well, it's helpful that they're also homegrown, so we don't have to protect them anymore.
Yeah.
and their
So
salary.
you keep them playing, so you don't got to worry about it when
Doesn't hit the
it comes draft
Right.
next year.
Well, not just that. The big thing, really, in Padraig Smith's eyes, is their salary isn't on the books technically. So
Doesn't
that's
count towards that cap.
It doesn't count towards the cap, and this was kind of a segue that I was going to lead into, knowing that Brian's got some thoughts on this with the combine happening right now and everything like that. You've got a couple people, including Conor Casey, allegedly at the combine, taking a look at some of these young guys coming up in the draft. Now, as it stands right now, the Rapids have 2 picks, one in the first round, one in the second. Both are not really that relevant. They're not high picks.
It's
They're
like
not
what 14 and
29th or something like that. I'm spitting numbers, and this is probably me showing that I should have done some research, but this is all spitballing as I get to your thoughts as to what you might think happen come MLS draft day.
Yeah, I just see it as a possibility in the fact that I wouldn't be at all surprised to see us not take anybody in this draft. Simply for the fact that, let's face it, we just signed our top 2 draft picks in Perez and Ford as homegrowns. And these aren't draft picks that you have to say, well, I wonder if they can fit in the locker room. I wonder if they can fit in with the program. Hey, man, these guys are miles ahead of that. So they're good to go. So I wouldn't be surprised, like I say, at all to see either or both of our picks traded away to other teams for, as Matt was saying, money or, players TBD, to be determined later.
I think the producer is right. I think it's for some cash, because when you also take
Because we're looking at probably a transfer fee being owed at some point.
right, if the rumors around a certain specific Ghanaian or Ghanaian or
Or
dude
one of-
from
One
Ghana
of 15 Ghanaians
that plays in Norway, we're going to need some money.
Yeah.
Whether it's a transfer fee, whether it's to buy down salary to keep him from being a DP, we're going to need some TAM and some allocation. We're going to need some Padraig Smith magic in order to make something happen. And I think you're right. 2 semi-irrelevant draft picks might be more relevant to someone who has that TAM that we need. So I think you're right.
I mean, unless there's somebody that we have worked backroom deals.
Which can happen.
Yeah, that we know we can get with or move up to get. It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
So that's the voice of C38's warning to those out there. Don't be too disappointed if we don't really make too much of a splash when it comes to the draft.
Exactly. Good
And
point.
if so, the reason being is we signed Courtney Ford and Richie Perez. Why else would we need to draft someone else when we have two people we know fit perfectly?
You shouldn't have been expecting anything to come from any of these drafts with the team we currently have. Like we did, we're probably looking for a specific type of player to come in here, and it's going to be expensive to bring them in. So there's no way you're getting that out of a draft.
Yeah, and very few. I think we've looked at that roster has held pat pretty darn well. You can count the number of guys who have for sure left on one hand. So they've kept that roster pretty well intact. So there's just not a lot of room.
So as I'm listening to the way we're talking about the draft and kind of what Colorado's done to put themselves in this position, it makes me wonder how many years until the draft is irrelevant? Like at what point?
Well, you got to, as long the expansion teams, it's going to matter.
It may never dominate the TV ratings, but it'll always be a thing, I think.
It'll never be the importance of NFL or the NBA draft, but heck, how much relevance are those starting to hold?
Well, that's
after the first or second rounds.
It's hard for me to comment on those sports.
Yeah,
it could be the biggest thing in the sport. I wouldn't know.
Well, for NFL, it's different. But when it comes to NFL, a lot of things are just different because as a country, we just see that sport like every other country sees soccer. So we have to kind of tell ourselves,
and baseball
as soccer fans, that's what they think. Like I watch a lot of talk radio or talk shows.
So that's
kind of
an oxymoron.
Right.
Just stare at the radio.
Listen
just like the
to,
old days.
watch. It depends, man. The guy's
he's old-fashioned that way.
I listen to a lot of vlog posts.
I got a lot of platforms, whether it's TV,
I taste a lot of
iHeartRadio,
computers.
Sirius.
I write a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely write this podcast.
I read a lot of podcasts.
But between all of that, you definitely know the football and college football, the attention to the detail. I mean, they can make a story out of nothing. And there really isn't a whole lot of that when it comes to footy. I mean, you hear it here and there, but I mean, we haven't even touched on Gashy's offseason. If anybody's been on Twitter at all, there's got to be two sides to how you feel about the dude spending his offseason.
Yeah, on ATVs and giant sand dunes and yachts.
And badass $200,000 yachts and private planes.
You'd think he played for the New York Giants.
Difference is he didn't have any pipes or bongs in his pictures. So, there's just...
Oh, Angela.
Since I brought it up, does anybody give a shit? Like, does it worry you? Does it bother you?
No.
Because for me personally, my take is let the guy have some fun.
I think it's funny. Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, when he came to Colorado, he didn't have an off season.
No, you're right.
This is his first off season in a year and a half. He hasn't had time to go be a young single
Rich
dude who happens to make a lot of cash. Like let him play. Because as far as I'm concerned, if he comes into camp happy because he had a great off season,
energized,
exactly, that's going to rub off on the rest of the guys in the locker room.
As long as he docks that yacht in Stanley Lake when season comes around,
dude,
live it up, man.
Nice.
As long as he doesn't hurt himself.
Right.
Yeah, let's face it, that's it right there.
Like, do whatever you want, just don't get injured.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be interesting. I'm anxious to talk to Tim Howard once people start showing up back in camp. This is his first winter off in how long? This is a different
well,
world
just about ever.
Until,
certainly
like
since he's had a
2000
family.
when
he was
left
24.
MLS.
Yeah. So almost
So it'll be different for people.
15 years that he's actually been able to spend Christmas in the States with his family. Yeah, so that would be kind of an interesting little conversation to have. One other thing we haven't touched yet, PB, Paul Bravo. I
didn't see it coming. I'd say that.
Yeah, I didn't, but then I did. So once I saw it happened, I wasn't surprised because I always kind of thought that there was a part of me that felt like Padre coming in was eventually going to take over, and I felt like Bravo was just kind of there to help.
The transition
Each
team.
other was, I think that Padraig was there to help Bravo. Bravo was there to help Padraig. I thought it was kind of a bit of a team thing, but I never at one point then thought at some point it would all be Padraig. I would have liked it to be that way because
I wonder if it will.
A handful of years ago, I felt like Bravo really wasn't necessarily a good fit. Whether we have Padraig to thank for the most recent success or not.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know whose fingers.
We still won a cup without Padraig.
Yeah.
So we got to give Bravo some credit there because he obviously had a lot to do with bringing in Gary Smith and Conor Casey and some of the guys that we had. So
Coach Conor Casey.
He did some good. And I also have to think that he was probably really handcuffed because I put myself in his position the other day when I was thinking about it. It's really got to suck to leave a position and a job that you see the organization finally turning into something that you wanted it to be 10 years ago when you first took that job. Because I don't think he had the ability to do what he probably wanted to do when he first took the job.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, he didn't have the money.
Right.
The
now all
wallet
of
was
a
not
sudden,
open at all.
the club is willing to open up the pocketbook. They're willing to kind of take a look at players and things that maybe they wouldn't have done back in the day.
And the league has changed.
Right. So much has changed. And now you're leaving the job when it's finally gotten to a point where you're like, I could have done my job now.
Yeah, there's some options.
But now I got to go because, who knows?
And that's the thing, too. Got to go or wanted to go. It'd be anxious to kind of poke around and see if we can get more.
Yeah, because nothing was really said as far as where he's going, if he's still has a future, if he's running some other team, or is he just going to kind of...
Who still needs a coach?
What if he ends up at Colorado Rush?
With Gary Smith, that'd be hilarious. Nah,
I just hope that they left on good terms because that still hasn't actually shown up from what I can tell either. It's just been reported that he's gone. So it's like, I hope that it was like they didn't burn a bridge there. Like I
think if he had left,
and he was like he wasn't anything amazing, but he did a good job.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. I think he did a good job with what he had to work with. And I don't think as fans, sometimes we don't necessarily take into consideration how hard it is to work under Kroenke Sports Organization.
Right.
Like it's not easy. I mean, you ask an Avalanche fan, ask a Nuggets fan, and we're all Rapids fans. We've seen what this team has been through. We know they can only focus on one team at a time. So once you start seeing one of those teams building their rosters and making moves and doing something, you have to worry about one of the other two teams because things are going to be forgotten about. Right?
I don't think the Nuggets had a good year, did they?
No, and the Avalanche are absolutely crap this year. They're the worst team in the league.
Their legendary coach walked out too.
He did a Gary Smith.
Right. Yeah.
He walked out so much that he didn't even take the shit from his house.
Really?
Yeah.
He pulled a Marco Papa?
Pretty much. They're selling his house with his furniture and shit in it.
Wow.
Like he just straight up said, I'm done. And that really has to make an impression on a guy when they straight up just are willing to walk like that. And,
just take a dump on the boss's desk and walk out.
That is, man. Wait, you sound awful experienced in that type of thing. Just saying.
That's how he gets his promotions.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I'm sorry to see you go, Mr. Bravo. I think you did a dang good job with what you had to work with. And, I don't know necessarily. I wouldn't sit there and think that the club is going in a different direction. I think that...
Yeah. I think it's going wherever Padraig wants to steer it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the guy that needs to be...
Which is cool.
With his hands on the levers and controls. Because everything he's done, everywhere he's gone, success has followed. So I think it's only a matter of time. I said it last year, given 3 years. So this will be year 3.
And we're tracking in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And if he brings in, whether it's this Koomsman guy or... I mean, I really don't think it's Boateng. I personally think that there was a mix-up in that. and Koomsman's their real target, and just doing what little bit of research I did, it really could be that missing key.
See, he does do research, people.
I do. I just stop when I
Sometimes.
feel like I have the answers.
Since you researched
Stop when his
Boateng and
drink
now
is empty.
Koomsman, how do you compare the two?
Same.
To an extent. Obviously, when you are considering and comparing two players, you have to consider talent level. And not watching, I don't have the scouting programs that they have, which this is something that I actually want to talk to Parg about because I'd like to get my hands on one.
Well, we may see in a few weeks.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But not seeing them play and just doing what research I can between the internet and video games and all sorts of crap, whatever I can tap into, I can. From what I can gather, Boateng is a few years ahead of Koomsman just as far as development and skills. I can't necessarily speak for impulsiveness and reactions and just kind of play to play.
Now, Boateng was
Stats-wise-
actually 25, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
when I look at it, okay, so Boateng's 25. He's, they're looking at, $3.5, $4 million transfer fee. He's valued pretty high. Koomsman is valued, but not valued as high. He's 3 years younger. Little raw in some areas.
When the number I saw, $600K.
Yeah. Much lower price tag when you consider all things. And when knowing how Padre works, $600K can be covered in TAM and allocation money.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of think low transfer fee for a kid who's just a little bit younger than Boateng. And looking at Boateng's numbers and the way that he was rated between FIFA and Football Manager and just statistics and reading about him, the guy was definitely a creator and an enforcer kind of in a midfield. What I read about Koomsman is he's not so much of the enforcer,
Right.
but he is the creator. He led Norway with 10 assists last year, 10 or 11, double digits. So kind of a number, but that was the leading number in assists for that league.
For that league, yeah.
So it makes me wonder if
So they don't like to pass, is what you're saying.
Well, not necessarily, because again, I haven't watched any Norway Triple Legion games. Like, I just don't know necessarily.
What do we pay you for?
God.
I watch Scottish football, English football, American,
Twitch.
but I don't necessarily watch Norway. So I can't
Matt,
speak
take care
for
of that, will you,
Oh,
please?
yeah, we'll subsidize the extra satellite dish you'll need.
But
You up on the
I
roof.
kind of wonder if a kid of his projection might be reaching his potential in Norway, and coming to MLS might be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea where Norway ranks in the world soccer rankings?
Well,
Not off the top of my head. I can see if I
And
can pull it up real fast.
it's not first division Norway either, correct?
Okay. If we learn where...
Relegated club.
Yeah, so
So the club is being
I
relegated
thought
out
that was
of.
misreported. Did
Although-
Burgundy Wave say that was misreported?
Well, I think
that
the
they were relegated.
Boateng thing was a misreported thing, but
I
I'm
thought they
not
said
quite
that
sure.
but that doesn't necessarily. I mean, look at, for example, look this week what Kansas City did. Was it Kansas City? They signed the striker out of England. He's playing at, was it third division Leyton Orient? I mean, if people think you can play, people think you can play. Not necessarily the club you're trying to put numbers up. So, and at 22, again, it's going to be kind of the same arguments or reasonings we had last time. At 22, who knows what this kid could be?
Exactly.
I mean, at 22, let's face it, all four of us were a bunch of shitheads.
Right. I could
And
have
he's
told
probably
you two different
shaving more than
directions.
Cerna is already.
Yeah. So that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I could have think about 2 or 3 different ways my life could have gone at 22.
Yours could have gone 10.
That's probably true. And the path I chose was the 11th.
Nothing but STDs. And
Hey, I'm cleaning that department. Happy to report.
Clean report card. I've been clean for 3 years now.
I passed with flying colors. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, on that note, fellas, I hate to eat and run, but
yeah.
mahalo for your time. Aloha till next week.
This is not the podcast ending. This is just Brian.
This
leaving.
is just Brian because he's got a date tonight.
I'll see y'all.
All right.
See y'all next week. Yo.
See you next week.
Okay. Don't forget
Just
to
watching live porn.
Don't forget to mute me.
Sorry, I should have muted you when you got in here.
I meant to mute you from.
Dead silent without you. Can't you at least hold on, Brian, until Brendan's done playing with the computer? we need you to fill some of this silence.
The top Norway team is Rosenborg, and they're rated 185th
In the world.
in the world.
Okay. Is that team or league?
The Norway jerseys look like NASCAR. They have like 800 logos on them.
Do they have their name on them?
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's probably
Okay, then they're a little ahead of Mexico then, where everyone's named Corona.
or Modelo.
Guess I'm gonna have to cut a bunch of this shit out.
Well,
Right.
he didn't break a glass, so I guess that's a.
Not yet, but he's still closing that door.
All right, so
Go! 9 panels of glass shattered on the ground.
Koomsman
You
team.
need the Stones Cold Steve Austin intro off of it.
The team that Koomsman is technically with, Sonnegal or whatever, they're rated 545th in the world.
You haven't even been doing your Norway Rosetta Stone? Come on.
Yeah.
Make some effort. Try to care. Just try.
So, I mean, I don't know. That's 500.
Well, where are the Rapids rated in the world?
I'm pulling that up, man.
Well, I was just asking about the league. If the league is comparable to the MLS.
It didn't quite give me a league reference, but the Rapids are rated 338th.
Well, there you go.
And this is via clubworldranking.com, if anybody wants to fact check my shit. So, with that all being said,
I forgot the point of all that.
well, the point of it basically just comes down to I wondered if the kid was kind of reaching his maximum potential in Norway, and that could be a possibility. Mm-hmm. And maybe coming to MLS, maybe coming to a team that's ranked 200 places higher up, might not be a bad thing. And he seems to be a good creator, and that's kind of what we were talking about. Whether you want to call him a number 10, although I think a number 10 in Colorado is jinxed. Don't ever wear that number. Unless you're LP Bay, who I doubt will ever come out of retirement. Take notes, Landon Donovan. Anyway, it would be good. I would like to see that happen. I would be okay with not taking anybody in the draft, signing 2 homegrown players, and bringing in a creative midfielder who can do both really good defense and set free the 2 to 3 guys that we have up top that can really make something happen. And that's really kind of what our missing key is, that missing link. That's what we've been talking about the last 2 podcasts. And if this cat's it,
I want him to be more offensive than defensive. My only worry every time when it comes to this team is that we tend to focus a lot of defense in that, especially central midfield role. And if he's coming in, it sounds like he's, at least decently offensive minded. Don't let Pablo crush that.
No, you're right. Because
you got to let him do what he does to go forward and score some goals. You can't have 3 defensive midfielders and try and support an offense.
No, you're right. I mean, we've said that about Doyle, Gashi, and Powers. All 3 of them. We've said that about each time that Pablo's plugged them into that cam role. You can't be held back by the defense. You need to be more offensive in that situation. And, maybe finding someone who's going to be a little bit more natural at it.
Austin, you can teach him how to be more offensive, right?
Oh, I am great.
That's shitting on the boss's desk. That's gold. That's step 1.
You can't be more offensive than that. I mean, I guess, you could do the whole major league thing and pull out the contract and take a piss on that.
Wipe your ass with it. Wow, we're a half hour in.
Yeah, that's not so bad. I mean, really, when you consider,
may actually be a short cast.
We don't have to necessarily drag it on and keep the listeners listening for an hour. But,
yeah,
do we
give him a heads up? The voice of C38's planning on doing some bigger stuff next year.
That's true.
Wait. Be prepared for that.
We haven't really gotten to this. Anytime I can bring this channel back. I just love that chant. We need more chants like that.
Yeah, we did briefly touch on Rapids number
passing.
9.
I don't know if anyone caught that.
It was mentioned in passing earlier in the show that Coach Casey, as Brian was calling out, could be a possibility. I mentioned that as it was breaking right before we recorded that John Spencer has left the Rapids, and Conor Casey is at the Combine with the Rapids. This seems eerie similar to the situation 3 years ago when OP left, and it was reported that Masserini was at the Combine and was going to be kind of running the show a little bit during the preseason until they found someone. I knew then Pablo was that someone. They just were stringing it on. This kind of seems almost like that same situation where Spinney left, Casey's with the team. Nothing's really being said yet, but we all kind of know it's coming.
Now, do you think Casey is going to be scarier than Pablo?
Absolutely not.
Because that man, he's pretty big.
Casey's a big dude, but
if he yells at, like, you see him yell, he seems like he'd be a scary guy.
Yeah, but the thing is I don't know. I mean,
so he's got to be on the other end of the field from Howard.
I've only had
too similar.
Two bald guys just yelling.
So I've only had
like a parakeet pecking itself in the mirror.
A couple situations where I've had conversations with Conor, and he's a very chill dude. He's very Coloradan, so to speak. He's not Scottish. He doesn't have that short fuse. But I guess
New Jerseyan.
No, so I would guess that if he got to that point where he's yelling at somebody, yeah, he might be scary. But I think it would take a lot to get him there. That was my only reservation when I first thought coaching. But when I interviewed him at the end of his career, at the end of the season, just a few months ago, coaching was one of the things that I brought up, and he didn't shy away from it. He, mentioned that he had his coaching license, and teaching young guys is something that he enjoys.
No, he said touching young guys.
So
their lives.
Come on, is he
you
Catholic?
Sick fuck. Come on.
So
touching their lives and making them better players.
I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up giving him some sort of coaching position. Now, would they actually straight up give him the assistant's coaching job right away?
Why not? Well, you probably know. You've probably heard like you were in the Navy, but they say the drill instructors are the best actors you'll ever meet.
My RDI. I'll never forget that guy.
So putting on that coach facade may not be out of the realm of possibility. It may not have anything to do with who he is as a person. He may be a wonderful coach.
No, absolutely. I think
just
honestly,
because he can pull off that character.
But is he better than Spencer? Here's the question: If that happens, you're sacrificing Spencer,
well,
and is he taking the fall for a lack of offense because Pablo didn't let an offense happen, or was that Spencer not producing an offense?
Can anyone get Mascheroni's ear? Can anybody have it?
So
I'm a little bit
that's
towards
the big question.
Well, I think Matt also brings up another one as well because. Yeah, what you can do with the club is one thing, but to an extent, it all stops at Pablo.
But I think Casey and Pablo played together.
But so did Spinney and Pablo.
Yeah.
But Casey and Pablo do have a little bit more history than Spinney and Pablo. Spinney and Pablo did play together for a handful of years, but Casey was here longer. They won the cup together.
They worked well together.
So there might actually
there must be mutual respect.
Oh, there is. Even when talking about him.
We know Pablo loves people who he knows and respects.
Right. And just asking Casey on his thoughts about Pablo, there was nothing but positive. And you can tell in his voice, like he actually truly, genuinely admires Pablo.
We haven't gotten a bad word about Pablo from anyone.
Right. So despite what I see on the message boards about how people think Pablo can't coach and without Spinney, our club is doomed, I think they're just, I'm sorry, stupid. Because clearly Pablo can coach.
Second place in the league.
Like, no.
Like, he couldn't have done it being a complete idiot.
Right.
And he have improvement, yes. But
yes, there was improvement, and maybe Spencer had, his hand in that. And that's fine. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to know. You want to know that Spencer had something good to do with the team making the the progress that it made, because we all know Baji made progress. I mean, we can talk about how in the beginning of the year he couldn't score a goal for the life of him, and he ended up with a few goals by the end of the year. He still was missing some shots he shouldn't have, but he's young, and he'll get through that. And, maybe a guy like Conor Casey, who's played in this league for a long time and knows how Pablo wants to play his game, might be able to get into the head of some of these guys and help. Who knows?
What I would love to see is the interaction between Conor Casey and Kevin Doyle.
Oh, that would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Because, they're completely, same position,
Austin,
different styles of play.
Austin, you play Connor, and Brendan will play Doyle. Let me see how that'll go. A little improv theater.
Is it because I'm bald?
Yes.
And I can pull off the Irish accent when I'm trying to do Scottish.
It'd be funnier to see Brendan try to do Scottish accent again.
But I think that would be great to watch, because that's kind of what Pablo's wanting out of Doyle, is more of a Conor Casey type.
You nailed it.
Forward.
You're true.
And maybe with Casey being there, because Spencer wasn't.
No, you're right. Spencer, his style of play was to be quick, nimble, a little bit fancy on the feet, and make your run in behind the defense, which, yeah, when you consider the way Pablo plays, we do need someone who can play well with their back to the goal. And Doyle can do that. He's definitely shown that he can do that. So, yeah, maybe with a few little pointers and somebody like Conor Casey in his head. Yeah. And again, bringing in a guy like
Think about it. If our team gets a lot of injuries, he can come out of retirement mid-season and finish out the season.
I still thought Pablo was going to suit up at least one of those games.
So
Orlando, most likely.
I watched the Old Firm game between Celtic and Rangers the other day, and I'm a Rangers fan, if anyone doesn't know. So when Kenny Miller scored the first goal,
you a Catholic or a Protestant?
Protestant.
Protestant. Okay.
When Kenny Miller scored, I couldn't have yelled louder. In fact, all the cats and dogs all screamed and left out of the room. But I've been watching that guy play for a long time, just as long as Conor Casey, and he still has it. So at some point, it's funny you mention it, because I wouldn't put it past him if it ever happened where he'd be like, all right, I'll put some boots on. I mean, if Landon Donovan can do it, Conor Casey can too. We'll sell some shirts. Let's put a number 9 back on his back. Doyle, you're going to have to change your number to 19.
Yeah.
99. 99. Yeah, all right. I'm just speaking out of my ass at this point, but
isn't that what we always do?
A little bit, but I mean, there's a small part of me that really does like the idea of Conor Casey being a part of the club, and not just like some Brian Mullen position where he's like a player's liaison or community something, or don't give him some bullshit title like hey, assistant coach.
I feel that he would do a better job than, and not to put anything that Spencer's not a great coach.
I was happy when Spinney came too.
I just don't think that Spinney's style would have melded well with Pablo's style, and I think
Spinney's style needed another striker.
His style of putting the ball in the net
I think Conor might be better at handling this type of a team from an offensive mind, because of he played with Pablo, of course. So Pablo mirrors what Gary Smith did, which they both played in that exact setup. So I think it might be a little bit better of a chemistry there for coaching, and that doesn't mean Spinney didn't do a great job.
At the beginning of the year last year, I should have counted how many times Pablo made reference to 2010. And even now, with the rumor kind of hovering over the heads of bringing Conor Casey in, it just all the more seals my theory on the conspiracy that basically Pablo is trying to bring back that winning atmosphere, mentality, and just overall sense of winning to the club that happened in 2010. And who better to help him bring that back than one of the players who helped win that title? Like, it couldn't be. I mean, Omar Cummings is kind of available, I guess, if you wanted to bring him in too. But If you think about,
I don't think Omar would be as good because his style of play is more similar to Spinney's style of play.
There you go.
And I'm a huge Omar fan. Like, I have an Omar jersey signed by him.
Well, not just
Love
that,
the guy.
but Casey's also he's not homegrown, but if we had the homegrown system set up at the time, he probably would have been.
Yep.
So you got a Denver kid who still is the club's leading scorer, coming back to the club to help the offense.
European experience.
With European experience.
World national
team
level experience.
An amazing haircut.
I mean, if you're one of the people who are putting negative on that thought, you're just a negative person. And I'm not going to read into that because there really isn't anything bad.
How can you be negative anymore? After last season, how could you be negative anymore? Like, they have...
Pay attention to the feeds, man.
It sounds like a segment for next week.
Right. That's true.
How can you complain?
Let's start that. All right, guys.
I'll start digging it up.
And tweet us
how do you not have
between
that trust?
now and then.
Like, I think last season being negative going into... Or 2 seasons ago going into this last season, you had a right to be negative. 2 terrible seasons. We had a great season. A great season. Yes, we didn't end up with any silverware, but we got close multiple times on silverware, and that's to go from basically last team in the league to second in the Supporters' Shield and fighting for the cup. How can you complain about those results and not go into this next season having a little bit of trust and a little bit of faith in your front office, your coaching staff, your players?
6th highest rated team in MLS across the world platform.
It's hard not to like at least throw a little bit of trust there and not blow your head off every time someone's on their way out or someone's being looked at. Like I think they've done enough to at least earn a little bit of faith.
So if you have something negative to say that we can laugh at and
you can be mocked personally by the Voice of 238.
Tweet us and we'll respond next week.
Challenge.
That's out there. I'm putting it out there. Go ahead. Say something negative and let me rebuttal
Let's go.
Yep. And that's not because we're homers or anything. Austin laid it all out. I mean, we really had a season that we can find things to complain about if you really, truly want to. So
can
go ahead.
So can every other Denver team that's not DU now.
Or see you at the end of this season, or Broncos fans, because you know that many of them are great. Now I got to go to the Western Stock Show because they're not in the playoffs.
The Broncos have nothing to not complain about. They lost their coach. They've got a very grim couple of year future.
A quarterback you're not quite sure about. It sucks to be a Bronco fan.
We're in our prime. This is a good time for us.
I'm proud to be a Rapids fan right now.
We were on the news like twice last season. It's awesome.
Once with a mascot and once with the chick because she was singing the national anthem. How else can we get on the news?
Streaking. The biggest flash mob streak in MLS history.
It started at a tailgate at a Rapids game.
Yeah, that'll get us on the news. C38.
Yeah, Austin was briefly touching on it, and I briefly mentioned it at the beginning of the cast that the Voice of C38 is in preseason mode, and we're trying out a few new things as we are looking to expand our platform and our abilities to reach everyone. So the Voice will have its own new spanking website, hopefully in the coming months, where you'll be able to get all of our goodies, our podcasts, our tailgate interviews, practice interviews. Some will be written content, some will be video or audio content. We'll try to get everything else that we can, no matter how we can. Between Brian and I,
we brought in a great editor for our writing.
Yep.
Which
before it was just myself and Austin. So if you had grammatical errors to yell at, that would be my bad. In most cases, because I was the one writing everything. But we're adding a whole lot more, and we're going to be doing a whole lot more. So when you consider everything that we did last year, and that we talked about how we raised the bar so high, we still were able to conjure up more things that we wanted to do. So look forward to that as this season.
We're gonna be live streaming these. Hopefully, we will get on a set schedule we can give you guys.
Right.
That'll of course depend on all of our schedules, because we don't get paid to do this. But if you'd like to make donations,
oh my God, don't do that.
No. We're the only podcast not begging you for money.
That's as far as that joke will go. We're good.
Just
but
donate to the tailgate.
Yeah.
Trickle down economics.
Come have some fun. Our tailgate, we're going to up our game there as well. So we're going to be all over the place. We're hopefully going to be making some viewing parties where you're going to see the voice cast actually there doing some cool stuff and really upping our game within C30.
I've got some games in mind I want to do for some giveaways and some things like that. Yeah, I want to. Yeah, I've got some ambitions that I want to fulfill this year.
Some of them involve drinking, actually.
Absolutely. Most of them involve drinking. If you're going to win something, you better consume some alcohol you weren't really prepared to consume when you started your day. Let's just put it that way.
We hope to have all that running by the beginning of the season. If you guys want to catch us on currently my Twitch channel, The Drunken Monk C38, not with an underscore for the Twitch channel. That's where you can go to watch us live stream. We'll probably be posting on Twitter when we start, when we know the time will start. And you can check out my terrible graphics at the moment as we try and mold ourselves into a better setup over the next couple of months. And then start of next season, we should be on a set schedule and be letting you guys all see us live, which some of the stuff gets edited out, so we're a lot more entertaining live.
Absolutely, because I can't tell you how many tangents Matt's had to cut out.
Usually while swearing under my breath.
Right? God damn it.
So
we're going to get to the bottom of that land around dicks one day.
Well, so stay tuned for all of that good stuff as we kind of kill a little bit of the dead air, and we will see you next week as we look forward to discussing whether or not you can find something wrong to say about this team.
Yeah, bring it on.
And I'm sure we'll have more news because it seems like one or two stories are breaking during the week. So until then, guys.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. And if I haver, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who's havering to you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm walking, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you. And when the money comes in for the work I do, I'll pass almost every penny on to you. When I come home, oh, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home to you. And if I drove, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's going over you. But